he wanted to be the best, right? And I'm not saying that you have to be the best, but in order to be extraordinary, you really do have to be obsessed.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
All right, welcome to the Dr. Doug Show, where I bring together two critical components of self-mastery, HealthSpan and mindset. The topics I present here will help you to improve both your body and your mind and to help you live better, longer. Today, we're going to talk about this idea of being obsessed, of wanting to be extraordinary or extraordinary. And this is the first of a series of topics that I want to talk about in the realm of mindset. And I want to talk about mindset because no matter how much information I impart to my patients when it comes to the medical topics or even a plan of how to move forward, without the right mindset, it doesn't matter. And that's why we set our practice up the way that we do. And so we're going to talk about mindset. About every other podcast is going to be some kind of a mindset topic. And I'll have some guests on this as well, because it's taken me a number of people to have in my life to help me get to where I am with mindset. And I still have a long way to go. But today I want to talk about one of my mentors and this comment that he makes that's part of one of his slogans, which is average is the enemy. And that man is Pedro Sculian. He's a mentor, fantastic business coach, and an overall great guy. And if you haven't introduced yourself to him, especially for the men listening to this, he's a fantastic inspirational model. But he says average is the enemy. And from his perspective, he's going to mean it a little bit differently than I do. But what I like about this statement is it makes me think from a health perspective, what do we aim for? How do we get around this challenge that is so much mediocrity in health around us? How do we then elevate ourselves to that next level? And I look at it not necessarily that average is the enemy, but that we want to aim for optimal, not average. So I'm going to talk about why we are battling an uphill battle, what it takes to win, why you want to win, and why, again, you're aiming for that optimal, not average. So let's talk about what the problem is. So when we talk about average, let's talk about some average things with the United States adult population. Okay. So let's say half of the US adults have heart disease, right? That's true. Over half have high blood pressure. Over half drink alcohol regularly. Over half, almost over 70%, are overweight, with almost half being obese. Over 85% are not metabolically well. And the vast majority of adults honestly live a depressed, anxious, unfulfilled life. That's average. And that's why I want for you and for all of my patients to aim for optimal, not average. So when it comes to what is optimal, this is what people tell me. So they'll join our practice, then we'll have that first meeting and we'll say, okay, what are your goals? And people say, well, I want to sleep better. I want better vitality or vigor or however they want to describe it. But ultimately what they're saying is they want to show up for their family, for their coworkers, and ultimately for themselves. They want to be stronger. They want to look better, and that's not wrong. They want more muscle. They want less fat. They want reduced anxiety. They want more joy. They want more happiness. They want to optimize their lives. But here's the thing, and this is a challenge, which is if you want to live an optimal life, you have to just start by not being average. And that sounds elitist, but let me explain what I mean. I'm not saying that you want to leave everybody behind, although at first you might have to do that. What I'm saying is that I want to elevate what average is. I want everybody that is in my sphere of influence to elevate what average is so that we can all lead optimal lives. I would love to be able to say that optimal is average. How cool would that be? Oh my gosh, we are all optimized. Look at all of us optimized. Our average is so high that we're all there. I don't know that we'll get there. But my point is that this is not an elitist statement. I'm not saying leave everybody in the dust. I'm saying we should all be working to optimize ourselves and leaving what is currently average in the dust. To do that, though, you have to be willing to do or not do rather, what leads to demise. Oftentimes, this is not an act of adding more, working out more, doing more, doing more. A lot of times, it's actually doing less. It's actually subtraction. Subtracting the things that are harming you, subtracting the things, the activities, the behaviors, the addictive substances, um, removing those things rather than adding more. Probably have to add some more too. But ultimately, you have to be willing to be extraordinary, and ultimately, you gotta be obsessed. You gotta be obsessed because in order to live that extraordinary life, you have to be obsessed about the things that are gonna help separate you from the status quo of the pack. Some of those things that I would consider would be really looking at our optimization pyramid, right? So we have on the bottom our lifestyle uh, foundational pillars. We have sleep, exercise, nutrition, and mindset, right? Like those are the things that you need, and you have to fiercely defend those things. And you have to be obsessed about getting to bed on time. You have to be obsessed about eating the right food when there's so much garbage around you. Um, the next level up, you have to really go out of your way to have an extraordinarily well-defined supplement schedule, right? Something that is based off of biomarkers, something that is working for you, not just randomly selected off of Amazon or based off the last podcast you just listened to. Um, you have to be willing to go that extra step, potentially with peptides, potentially with hormones, and sometimes potentially with the right drugs. It depends on your starting point, but using all of the tools that we have available to us to help us to live that extraordinary life. Before we get to the next section on habits, let me just take a quick moment. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, if you're on a podcast platform, please leave us a review. This is the only way that we will get this channel out in front of the pack and to help us to reach more people so that they can live an optimized life and extraordinary human beings. If you want to join our group of extraordinary human beings, head on over to drddouglucas.com. There you can learn about our HealthSpan Nation, where we have discounts, resources, um, weekly Q&As, and a member section. So check that out if you are interested in hanging out with more people that are probably like you. Okay, so let's talk about habits. So as I mentioned earlier, some of the most important habits that you'll create in order to optimize your life to live extraordinary are actually elimination, habits of elimination. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is if you think about the things that are really bringing people down, you think about those things that are really negatively impacting most people, it's stuff that we need to remove from our lives. So I'll just speak about me and my personal experience, which is I had to remove alcohol from my life. I was not showing up to work drunk, have that kind of behavioral problem, but I was using it as a crutch, and rather than modifying it, I do better without it. So that was a subtraction. Regular TV, we used to watch TV on a regular basis at night for a way of winding down. I had to subtract that out of my life. I had some friends that I had to subtract from my life. I have some family members that I had to change their relationship with, and to subtract that out of my life. So there's a number of things that you potentially need to eliminate in order to make space for the things that you need to add. Um, I mentioned alcohol already, but there are a number of potential substances that that may be getting in the way. It could be in the form of alcohol, it could be in the form of recreational drugs, illegal. Um, Other substances might just be simply food, right? Some well accepted things that you need to subtract out of your life. Um, Habits can cross over with this quite a bit. So substances and habits often go together. So I mentioned watching TV. That's a big time habit. And not to say that you can't ever watch TV, but if you're using it as the tool that you have to wind down, like a lot of people use alcohol or other drugs, then you need to find another way to wind down. You need to find a way to get control over your headspace, to be able to bring your day to an end in an adequate way so that you can actually get to bed. I mentioned removing toxic people, toxic relationships. Sometimes you can't remove people, but you can change the relationship. Um, Sometimes toxic jobs. I mean, I talk about this a lot as somebody who used to take call in the hospital system, somebody who used to be, used to have the phone on and get called at 3 in the morning and have to go in and do some emergency surgery. That is a really toxic element to a career. Now, sometimes you can't avoid that. And as a society, we need people that work third shift. We need people that are on call. So there's an element of that, but some people are better at it than others. Some people can tolerate it for a certain number of years, but not later in their life. And so it's something to examine, and whether or not, if it's a little bit of extra money that you're making by doing that, or if it's something that you absolutely have to do. And if I'd stayed in the orthopedic world, it's something that I would have just had to do, and potentially could have mitigated, but ultimately had to do some. And so, if you can avoid some of these toxic jobs, terrible schedule shifts, that kind of stuff, that would be a much better thing to do. And again, this is all elimination rather than adding. And then when it comes to this concept of being obsessed, I I almost hesitate to use this word because people will look at it and say, "Oh, it's a bad word. You don't wanna be obsessed." But I think actually you do wanna be obsessed. And some people will likely disagree with me on this, but when you think about the word obsession is the act of thinking about something and you cannot stop until you've achieved something or done something. And that leads to the definition of obsessive compulsive disorder, right? So this is a pathologic condition where you will think about something and you can't stop thinking about it until you do the thing. And you'll see this in movies, or maybe you know somebody like this where they can't stop thinking about the germs on that doorknob and they have to keep washing their hands as a result of that. That's obsessive compulsive disorder. And there are all kinds of all kinds of weird variations of that. And while that is pathologic and that can be absolutely debilitating, I think stopping somewhat short of that, but being obsessed about making sure that you're getting the right food, and I'm gonna go through a little list here, um, because our world is packed with so many addictive things, with things that can harm you, things that are marketed toward you, people that are trying to do something that may be in their best interest, but not in your best interest. And so addictive foods is a great example. I think that we need to be obsessed about finding good food sources and not stop thinking about that until you actually did get a good meal. Obsessed about avoiding addictive activities. I mentioned TV earlier. Sports can be put in the same group. There are so many activities that we do because they're just mindless and they change our state, and it's something that our culture has accepted, but it's not necessarily something that you should spend all your time on. Um, Games, computers, online gambling, I just go on and on and on. Addictive substances, similar to addictive activities, can be a tremendous waste of resources. And here we're talking about alcohol, drugs, nicotine, vaping, whatever it is. Um, there's a time and a place for a lot of those things, but you have to understand what the role is, what are you using it for, what the potential risks are. And so I think I just see so many people that kind of go down this pathway, and you can make up a great story for any of it, right? I need alcohol for this, or I need or I'm microdosing mushrooms, or uh, I'm vaping for whatever reason. There are just so many different things that you can come up with excuses for, that ultimately your goal is you're really just changing your state, right? And you need to find another way to change your state. Um, we're also exposed to and surrounded by what I would consider nefarious companies, nefarious government organizations that do not have our best interest in mind. And what I mean by that is, you know, companies are out there to make money, and some of them are veiled as being good for you or being good for, some other thing that you might be in. And same thing with the government. Don't misunderstand the role of the government, and how they might not have your specific best interest in mind. Um, I wanted to take a moment and talk about this concept, or this folk tale of crabs. And I first heard this in a book, and it was told in the first person, but I won't tell it that way because I've never seen it happen. But the folk tale goes like this, which is, if you look at crabs, crabs, the little sea creatures with claws. So if you are, let's say, crab fishing, and you are catching crabs and you put them in a bucket, um, the crabs can get out of most reasonably sized buckets because they can climb. Their little feet have little hooks, and so they can climb out of like a plastic or a metal bucket. But what's interesting is if there's more than one in there, as one starts to escape, the other one will reach up, grab it, and pull it down. And I think this is a really a really interesting analogy for the people in our lives and the things that we find around us. Because when somebody starts to live an extraordinary life, when somebody starts to excel, and create that, what I call that escape velocity, when somebody starts to do that, it's not uncommon for even a family member, somebody that loves them, to reach up and pull them down. Tell them that what they're doing is silly. Tell them that what they're eating, they're doing, their activities are too extreme. They're too obsessed, and they'll pull them down. And it's true in crabs. It's true in humans. What's really funny about that tale is that it's actually not true in the wild. So if you were to take a crab out of that environment of being in a bucket and having been caught in all the stress, they don't do that to each other. And I think it would be interesting to see if we wouldn't either. But humans really are living as if we are in captivity. Humans are living um, as caged animals, especially um, we're in captivity, and I think we are responding as if we are. We are all stressed for various reasons. So I think we instinctively just get jealous, we get envious, and we will put each other down. We will pull each other down, and a lot of times we do it because we are trying to make ourselves feel better. We're trying to make ourselves feel as if our own insecurities are not as bad as they are. So I like to look at it like this too, because I hear this a lot. And my wife will talk about this with her clients in her weight loss company, PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, and it's very common for people to start losing weight, and then their family members or their friends will say, "Oh, you can't lose weight that fast, or you can't lose weight that way, or that's unhealthy, or what about this?" And it is amazing how people don't want other people to succeed even subconsciously. But yet, when you look at people who have been very successful, you look at just for example, like look at athletes, like professional athletes. So I look at people like Nadal or Roger Federer or Tom Brady or Michael Jordan. Or, I mean, just pick your extremely successful sports star and ask yourself this question: did they aim for average? Of course not. Did they listen when one of their family members said, "Dude, you're shooting too many free throws"? And I forget, Michael Jordan had some crazy training regimen, and he shot like, I don't know, like 3,000 shots a day or something like that. Somebody could be like, "Oh man, that's just like you don't need to do that. That's just too many. Like you're spending too many hours in the court." But no, he wanted to be the best, right? And I'm not saying you have to be the best, but in order to be extraordinary, you really do have to be obsessed. I look at some other people. Let's just pick a couple of like influencers or movie stars. So like Thomas DeLauer, he's in the health space. He's got a great story about being overweight and obese and lost a bunch of weight. Now he's got this, fantastic model body, and he talks. He's got a great YouTube channel if you haven't seen it. But that guy, if you look at what he eats, how he trains, man, he's not aiming for average, right? He was aiming for average before, and now he's obsessed about his workouts. He's obsessed about how he thinks about his diet. Um, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I just recently watched his a documentary about him. Really funny guy, but he talks about his upbringing and where he was and how his family thought that he was crazy, and his dad told him not to spend time lifting those stupid weights, and how he would never amount to anything. Right? Oops. But he was so determined to be successful that he did not care. He wanted to be extraordinary. So these people are obsessed with being extraordinary. And so some people might say that I'm obsessed with being extraordinary. I would argue that I am nowhere near those people that I just mentioned. But people still say that my diet's too restrictive. I don't think so. Works for me. People say that my workout regimen is too much. Well, I'm continuing to get stronger. I'm continuing to build muscle. I'm not injured, so I don't think it's too much. Um, it's so easy to look at somebody and point out that they are doing too much, especially when you feel like you're not doing enough. When you feel like there is the opportunity to bring them down, when you are hoping that they will choose that path of least resistance, you have to watch for yourself to not do that. But then when other people are doing that to you, you got to understand that they might want you to choose that path of least resistance. And we have to try so hard because it is so easy. Our minds really want to do that. So I mentioned this earlier. In order to live an extraordinary life, you have to be obsessed enough to create what I call the escape velocity. You create escape velocity by stacking wins, right? So this is by getting to bed on time. This is by getting up on time as you planned without compromise. Get through your morning routine. There is no other way around it. There is no other way to start your day. And as you start to stack these wins, I got up on time, I did my meditation, I got in the cold plunge, I walked the dogs, I made my cup of coffee, I did my journaling, I hit my first meeting at 6:45 right on time, right? By the time it's 8 o'clock, by the time I've even seen my kids, I'm like, I'm amped. I've already had 5 wins. I've already crushed it. I've already put myself in the right mental space. Stacking those wins is how you start to push that day. I'm gonna talk about that another day, but stacking wins, setting yourself up for success is amazing. I love the idea of avoiding that crab mentality. So if you're trying to get out of the bucket and somebody reaches up and grabs your foot, you kick that hand. Maybe be polite. Tell them, "Hey, I'm doing this for me. This is what I need for my own self. This is what I need, and I would appreciate your support." But don't let them pull you back down into that bucket. You have to be obsessed if you're going to be extraordinary. Another thought I'll leave you with too is that we really need to set our own standards. We need to look at what we want for ourselves. We need to define them, and we need to set out the path, and we need to just move forward, right? We need to shoot for the stars, because if you shoot for the stars, you may just land on the moon. Don't listen to small-minded people. Don't succumb to their insecurities. And remember that we are created for greatness. So seek optimal, not average. Don't be afraid to be extraordinary, because that's what it takes. All right. So if you found that helpful, please click the subscribe button or leave us a review. If you haven't joined our HealthSpan Nation, please head over to drddouglucas.com to learn more about that. And you can go down that pathway to get joined and join us in this group of people who are pursuing being extraordinary and are trying to figure out the best way to be obsessed about the things that matter. So hopefully I'll see you there. And if not, I'll see you on the next podcast.